Honey, grab a chair because what just happened in that courtroom is straight out of a movie. So let's get one thing crystal clear before we dive into this mess. Viewer discretion? Yeah, strongly advised. Because what we're about to spill is not your average tea. This isn't just celebrity drama, it's a full-blown systemic unraveling. And the man lighting the match, Joe freaking Rogan. Yes, the Joe Rogan, podcaster king, UFC commentator, the guy who once interviewed Elon Musk while he lit up a joint on camera. Yeah, that Joe. He just walked into federal court like a silent bomb. No entourage, no Hollywood swagger, just a black notebook in hand, and apparently a whole archive of secrets the world was never supposed to hear. It was day 7 of the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs. The press was already on edge. The courtroom, jam-packed with journalists, influencers, and legal vultures just itching for something to go viral. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for what happened when Joe Rogan strolled in. People thought it was a joke, a PR stunt. But no, baby, Rogan came with intentions. And when he opened his mouth, he blew the entire roof off the damn courtroom. I'm not here to gossip, he began. I'm here because I've been entrusted with first-hand accounts. These aren't rumors, these are real people, real receipts, and real trauma handed to me in trust. And it's time the truth came out. Mic drop. Everyone froze. No cameras were allowed inside, but court sketch artists were scribbling like mad, trying to capture every flicker of Joe's stone-cold expression. Even Diddy's defense team looked like deer in headlights. Then Joe dropped his first bombshell. Back in 2023, I had a guest, former security for an A-list artist. He told me off air that Diddy kept a private server in a bunker-like room at his Miami compound, full of evidence, videos, audio, blackmail, a whole damn archive. But it doesn't stop there. That same guest said Jay-Z, LeBron James, and other public figures knew about the so-called freak-offs. Maybe they didn't participate, but they knew and acted like it was business as usual. The courtroom, it exploded, gasping. One juror clutched their pearls. Diddy's face went pale. His lawyers tried to object, but the judge overruled them faster than you could say freak-off. Joe continued, these weren't just wild parties, these were rituals. Phones taken, guests blindfolded, cameras hidden. Everyone acted like it was normal, like it was just the price of fame. Then came the receipts. Yes, girl, he brought the tapes. Submitted them to the DA's office before his testimony. Voices verified by forensic audio teams, and what they said shook everyone. I've interviewed Navy SEALs, conspiracy theorists, CIA agents, but nothing comes close to the horror I've heard from industry insiders about these parties. And let me tell you, Rogan was just getting warmed up. He began recounting stories from his podcast that never made it to air. Stories too disturbing, too dangerous, too real. Guests who cried, who demanded their voices be distorted, who begged for anonymity. And all of them painted the same chilling picture. Rogan described one interview with a producer who attended a 2015 Diddy party and saw hidden cameras in the smoke detectors. People slipping drugs into drinks, celebs pretending not to see a damn thing. And then he read this line from his notes, I saw people being filmed against their will. Diddy called it leverage. That one sentence sent a chill down every spine in that courtroom. Joe admitted many of the claims were anecdotal, but far too many lined up to ignore. Same dates, same behavior, same trauma. He connected those accounts to real lawsuits filed under Jane Doe. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, and Joe was the only one brave enough to show the full picture. One of the darkest parts, a music video director came to him in 2022, sobbing. He had footage from a Diddy party, uncensored. Said he'd been blackmailed into filming those events for a decade. He couldn't go public. He was terrified. And Joe, he protected the tapes. But then came the real jaw-dropper. Remember Elon Musk's viral appearance on Rogan's podcast? Yeah, that episode. Joe reminded the jury of what went down. Elon casually calling out J-Lo for her silence. She dated Diddy. She went to those parties. She knew, Elon said. And instead of asking what J-Lo might be hiding, the world defended her. Then Joe reminded everyone of that infamous 1999 nightclub shooting. J-Lo was in the car, Diddy walked free. Shine went to prison, and J-Lo, she kept dating Diddy for 2 more years. Joe looked the jury dead in the eye and asked the question no one else dared to speak aloud. What if you're only perfect for the devil? And baby, if that wasn't haunting enough, he circled back to one of the darkest allegations yet, the Miami vault. He said a former bodyguard for Diddy described a locked biometric access only room, reinforced, air-gapped servers, encrypted hard drives, surveillance footage, contracts, blackmail material, and it wasn't just for leverage. It was Diddy's insurance policy. He called it his church, Joe whispered. The courtroom? Stunned. The judge allowed Rogan's affidavit about the vault into evidence. Even though no one could confirm the vault's existence, yet multiple guests on Joe's show described it the same exact way, down to the secret cameras and the disguised peephole in the mirror. Then Joe dropped another revelation. 3 months ago, someone reached out to my team anonymously, claimed they worked for a data recovery firm in Miami, said they were hired to recover encrypted videos from a corrupted server, videos from Diddy's parties. And guess what? Joe didn't air it. He archived it, because if the feds got involved, that footage, it could change everything. And Joe didn't stop there. Oh no, darling, he went for the jugular. And now, baby, we're diving even deeper, because if part 1 made your jaw drop, part 2, it'll have you screaming into your pillow. Let's rewind to what Joe Rogan said next. Jay-Z. Yep, Hav himself. Not accused of participating in anything, but Rogan made it very clear that Jay-Z saw things, heard things, walked through those parties like a ghost in a mansion full of demons. Joe said it himself. Jay-Z was always there, seen but not seen, never spoke, never lingered, but he was there. He wasn't pointing fingers, he was pointing out patterns. Patterns of powerful people showing up to places where horrifying things were happening and then pretending they did it. And here's where it got really scary. Joe said he once confronted an insider and asked, why doesn't anyone call this stuff out? The man laughed, dead serious, looked him in the eye and said, because you don't take down Puff without pulling Hove down too. And that's when the courtroom shifted again. The prosecution pounced. That statement aligned with their theory that the entire entertainment industry was protecting itself, turning blind eyes, keeping secrets, trading silence for access, power, and status. Then came the threats. Joe Rogan said his team received anonymous warnings, emails that read like movie scripts. Don't dig too deep, Joe. You'll end up like the ones who did. They traced one IP address back to a PR firm connected to Roc Nation. Oh yes, baby, this wasn't just about Diddy anymore. This was the machine, the system, the game behind the fame. Joe's voice cracked as he said, silence is a weapon. And this entire machine is built on people keeping their mouths shut. But I'm not built that way. Then he brought up the Man Zero lawsuit. You know, the one that claimed a man was paraded around at one of Diddy's parties wearing a mask made out of redacted anatomy? Yeah, that one. Joe revealed he spoke to someone who was actually on that yacht, a young videographer hired to film the happy stuff, but what he saw wasn't happy. It was traumatic. People being led into rooms with red lights, others tied up, a man in a mask being laughed at by celebrities. And among the guests, LeBron James, Gloria Estefan, Jay-Z, Beyonce. Joe made it very clear, I'm not saying these people participated, I'm saying they were there, and their silence is a choice. Now, hold on, because the yacht story, that was just the beginning. Joe then unfolded a letter from a former crew member who worked that boat. They thought they were working a private video shoot, but once the yacht crossed into international waters, everything changed. Phones were confiscated, curtains drawn, a private room locked, and then came what the crew called the rotation. Every hour, new guests escorted in, escorted out, like clockwork. Some staff were allegedly instructed to spike drinks, some refused. Others didn't. And hidden cameras inside mirrors. Let that sink in. Then came the guest who wasn't even supposed to be there. A last-minute invite. Thought he was just a networking opportunity, but what he saw ruined him. Joe quoted, there was a man in a mask. People were laughing. It looked like performance art, except it wasn't. And here's the kicker. After the yacht docked, he was offered money to forget what he saw. He refused. 2 weeks later, his apartment was broken into. The only thing taken, his external hard drives. The courtroom was dead, silent. The judge allowed the letter into evidence. One juror had their hand on their mouth the entire time. Joe looked the jury straight in the eye. People risked their lives to speak the truth. Others were PAI'd to forget it. By now, it was clear this wasn't a testimony. This was a full-on detonation of Hollywood's deepest, darkest secrets. And Joe wasn't finished. Let's talk about leverage, he said, because according to him, Diddy wasn't just throwing wild parties. He was building an ecosystem of silence, a fortress of fear. Joe called it a web of invisible handcuffs. Here's how it worked. You're invited to a party, you sign an NDA, you're filmed without knowing, and a month later, you get a text. Not a threat, just a reminder. Had fun last month. Let's keep that between us. Grammy-winning producer told Joe he was offered a major career boost in exchange for deleting a video from one of Diddy's parties. He refused. A week later, 3 venues canceled his tour. And Joe? He got legal letters from powerful PR firms warning him, threatening him, trying to shut him up. He didn't say who sent them. But the jury? They didn't need names. They felt the chill. Then came the most disturbing detail yet. Joe said a source from a celebrity security agency told him about something called the rainy day file. What was it? A master folder, stored off-site, encrypted. Diddy's nuclear option. It allegedly contains video evidence, blackmail material on celebrities, politicians. Joe said one of those files features a very powerful politician. I'm not saying the name, but if the feds find it, this trial is just the beginning. The judge ordered that statement stricken from the record, but baby, the damage was done. Joe leaned in with one last truth bomb. This isn't fame, this is fear. He didn't build an empire, he built a vault. And if one key turns, it all comes flooding out. Now here's the part that made even the sketch artists put their pencil down. Joe stood up. No one asked him to, but he had to say this standing. This isn't about canceling Diddy. It's about finally holding someone accountable who built an empire on fear. And the judge, shockingly, let him make a closing statement. The whole room froze. Joe took a breath and let it rip. Over the years, I've interviewed astronauts, scientists, philosophers, comedians, experts, and you learn to detect liars. You also learn to spot fear. And I'm telling you, what I've heard about Diddy didn't come from trolls. It came from people who were shaking. People who looked over their shoulder every 10 seconds. If the feds don't find the footage, the public will. And when that happens, this courtroom will look like a warm-up act. He turned his head, looked straight at Diddy. I don't know if you started this, I don't know if you inherited it, but I know one thing, you kept it going. And now, you're watching it crumble from the inside out. And for the final blow, Joe said, I've said a lot on the mic. Some of it dumb, some of it funny, but this is the one time I needed every word to count. Because if even one kid out there is saved from stepping into that nightmare, then every threat, every NDA, every silent producer was worth breaking. He closed his notebook, stepped down, walked past the defense table, and for the first time in days, Diddy didn't look up.